All right, so now we're going to talk about something you're definitely going to care about in regards to your retirement planning: Social Security. Social Security is a huge system. You will almost certainly be receiving Social Security benefits when you retire. And also Social Security, a lot of people don't know, it also essentially serves as a life insurance plan and as disability insurance. It is a big deal. In terms of the U.S. federal government, it is their biggest spending outlay. So in other words, out of all the things they spend money on, Social Security is the biggest, okay? So you're definitely going to want to know how the system works. Social Security is a pension-like system, so that's why I lump this stuff together. It applies for almost all U.S. employees. There are specific cases where you won't be paying into Social Security, but it's very likely that when you retire, you will have earned Social Security benefits. We'll talk about some of the exclusions here in a bit. Sometimes Social Security is referred to as deferred compensation. So I'm going to make note of this term now, just so you know what it means if it's referenced. Deferred compensation basically suggests that you're taking your money that you could be earning now and you're pushing it in to the future. So that's deferred compensation. You could think of something like a regular pension plan as being deferred compensation, and it definitely is. You could even think of something like a 401k as being deferred compensation, but usually people don't use that term to define a 401k. What's unique about Social Security compared to other plans is that it's essentially forced. You can't really get out of Social Security in 99% of the cases. So you're forced to pay into Social Security to basically allow you to save. The logic here is that a lot of people won't save enough, and if they don't save enough, they become a burden on the system. So the government's going to force people to save, much in the same way that they might force you to take vaccinations, for example. Okay, it's about protecting everyone else. So it's deferred compensation. It also is not just a retirement benefit. It is retirement, life insurance, and disability insurance. Essentially, it functions to accomplish all of these. If I were to keel over and die right now, my family would get substantial survivorship benefits, as the Social Security puts it. Survivorship benefits just being the people who don't die that are related to the person who did die will continue to get those benefits as long as they are spouses, parents of their children, or the children themselves. So someone's going to get benefits as long as there's someone connected to you when you die in regards to Social Security, assuming you've met the requirements for Social Security payments to happen. Okay? I will go ahead and say that not everyone pays Social Security. I think I'm just going to mention this now because it's not really a big deal, but it actually might be relevant to you watching this video right now. One category that does not pay Social Security benefits is college students who work for their college who get paid a small amount of money. If you get paid less than about $1,800 a month, you might not make any Social Security payments. If you make less than about $7,000 or $8,000 a year, again, you might not actually have to pay into Social Security at all. If you do pay into Social Security accidentally, if it's accidentally taken out of your money, you can actually apply to get that money back. So you might look at your tax receipts and see if you're paying in. I know when I was a Georgia college student, I was a referee for a few years and got paid, a couple $1,000s a year. None of that went into Social Security. I'm positive because I can look back at my Social Security benefits and see that I really didn't ever pay in. So that's one reason. If you're a college student not making much money, again, from your college, that works. If you're a grad student, a lot of times you get paid a stipend for grad students. That may or may not apply depending on how it's set up. And then there's some specific workers who do not pay into Social Security. For example, some school system employees don't. Most famously in Georgia, the Gwinnett County school system does not pay into Social Security. It's not just the school system, it's basically any Gwinnett County state or Gwinnett County employee does not pay into Social Security. They have their own Gwinnett County payment system that they've set up, and since they have a replacement, they're not required to do Social Security. So there are some specific cases where you might not pay into Social Security. If, for example, if you become a Gwinnett County teacher and you're there for 30 years, your entire career, you won't pay into Social Security at all. You'll certainly want to know that because you'll be wondering where your payments are if you're not involved in Social Security. So just about everybody pays them, but not quite everyone. And so what I really want to do, and what you're going to see here, is Social Security is simple in some ways, kind of like regular pension plans. It's simple in some ways, but when you get into the specific details, it gets very complicated. I'm not going to get into the most extreme details because probably some of those details are going to change before you have a chance to realize them. For example, the full retirement age right now is 67. I want you to remember that number, 67. However, I'm not going to dive into all the details about what's called, there's full retirement and then there's partial retirement and all kind of details. I'm not going to dive into all those details because they are likely to change, but I'm going to try to get you through the key points so that you understand in general how Social Security works. And one of those key things being that as you pay into Social Security, the benefits you receive tend to dwindle over time. In other words, when you first start working, that money you're making when you first start working is going to be more important to Social Security than your 3 millionth dollar that you earn, because Social Security benefits are regressive. As you earn more, the benefits tend to decrease over time. You definitely want to understand how that works. So I'm going to go over some key points here. Kind of in no particular order, but I want to make sure you get these ideas. Number one, funding Social Security. You guys already know how Social Security comes out of your paycheck. You pay 6.2% of earned income into Social Security. And you double that if you're self-employed. We've talked about this in the past, right? You put in 6.2%, your employer puts in 6.2%. If you're self-employed, you have to put in 12.4% to basically be on the same playing field as everyone else. However, again, not everyone's going to pay into this. This excludes some key things to recognize here. It excludes investment earnings, for example. So all earnings are not treated the same. If you have, bond income coming in or dividend income, or you sell some stock, none of that's going to be relevant in determining your Social Security income, even if it is relevant in determining your income taxes. This is what makes it all so complicated in personal finance. The things that are income taxed are not always taxed for Social Security or Medicare, okay? So your investment earnings are never taxed for Social Security. Rental incomes, never taxed in terms of Social Security. I mentioned before, some of the student-based incomes may not be taxed. I'm just going to mention it now. Remember, it's potential. If you're earning a lot of money as a student, you might actually start getting taxed on that income. So this is some of the stuff that it excludes. It's kind of important to know this so you know what's being taxed and what's not. But in some ways, it's kind of hard for this to be actionable, right? It's kind of hard to use this information for value. But there are two primary cases where this is actionable, okay? And it all is really linked to your health insurance. So this is an important one to know that I don't think we've made note of all year so far. Your health insurance premiums, make note of this. Health insurance premiums are not subject to Social Security taxes. Your health insurance can be quite expensive. You might be paying, $6,000 a year for health insurance. That $6,000 a year you pay is not counted as Social Security earned income. So what I mean by that is, if you're earning $100,000 a year from your job, but you're paying $6,000 to health insurance premiums, Social Security will only tax you on the $94,000 that you earn. Okay, so that's definitely an important one to note, and we've been ignoring that so far because we've tried not to get too complicated with our numbers. Another one here that we have talked about, HSAs, that beautiful plan that we've been discussing some. HSAs are not eligible to Social Security taxes. This is linked to health insurance. So basically anything linked to your health insurance accounts that you pay from your income will not be subject to Social Security taxes. Another one here, an FSA, a flex spending account. We're going to talk about that in the next day's videos. That's also not eligible. Okay, so this is kind of something you might want to think about because this is more actionable, right? What I mean by that is you can actively choose to put money into your HSA. Anytime, if you're an employee, you can put more money into your HSA if you haven't hit the threshold, the maximum. All right, but it's kind of hard to use this information for any good, all right? It's not like any of you right now are going to be like, oh, I'm going to go get a student job because it's not eligible for Social Security, all right? It's kind of not really all that important. But these are super important because a lot of money goes into these, and also you choose which of these you want to do. You can choose a cheap or expensive health insurance plan. You can choose whether or not to contribute to these HSAs or FSAs. So you're certainly going to want to think about these, okay? So funding your Social Security, you put in 6.2%. Your employer matches that, and then this is some of the stuff that you should know about who pays and who doesn't pay. Jump in right here and make a quick note. In regards to Social Security, there is a cap. There's a maximum amount of taxes that you could pay. So for example, if your income is $200,000, let's say that you make HSA contributions of $5,000, traditional 401k of $10,000, and health insurance premiums of $20,000, let's say. Let's say that's this person's situation. It's important that you know what goes where and what gets treated as taxes is not as taxes. So for this person here, in regards to their income taxes, all three of these things would reduce their income taxes. This is something we haven't mentioned before. Your federal and state income taxes are reduced by your health insurance premiums. We'll talk more about that in the future. For now, for Social Security, we should recognize that the 401k does not factor into your Social Security payments, but the others do. So this person's taxable income would be reduced to $175,000. All right? So that's how much that person would have in taxable income if there wasn't a cap. So this is just something you have to remember. If your income goes beyond $137,700, it doesn't matter how much your income is. There's a question on the quiz about LeBron James. He's earning $30 million a year. Well, someone earning $30 million a year or someone earning $200,000 a year is going to end up having the same Social Security tax bill because your taxable income is capped at $137,700. So this person would end up paying 6.2% of that value. So when you're doing your calculations and the incomes are very high, you need to remember that the income is taxed at a cap of $137.7K. So just about everybody's going to pay in. A few exclusions there. Just a note here, Social Security tax is not really a tax. Okay? So when you hear people talk about Social Security as a tax, let's recognize what a tax is, right? When I pay my income taxes, that money's just gone, okay? If I pay $1,000 in Georgia state income taxes, it's not like I'll get more benefits if I pay $2,000 in taxes. Social Security is different. What you pay in increases how much you're going to receive. So as you pay more taxes, quote unquote taxes, your benefits increase. So you should think about this differently, right? What I mean by this is if I can avoid income taxes, that's a big deal. If I can somehow figure out a way to cut my income taxes down by $2,000, that saves me $2,000. But if I can figure out a way to cut my Social Security taxes down by $2,000, that's not as good because remember, Social Security has benefits. It's not all costs. It's not all taxes. So as you pay into Social Security, you're increasing how much you're going to receive if you die, if you become disabled, or if you retire, okay? That being said, the benefits are usually not worth how much you put in, okay? especially if you're watching this video, especially if you're good at personal finance. All right, so as a big disclaimer here, most people, especially those that are good at personal finance, would prefer or be better off to pay less to Social Security taxes. So you can kind of think of it this way. If you pay $1 to Social Security taxes, it's not like you're losing $1, but it's also not like you're losing nothing. Basically, right now, when I lose $1 to Social Security taxes, I kind of see that as like losing 50 cents. I'll get some benefits for it, but not as much as I'd like, all right? I would much rather have, if I had $1 right now, I could give it to Social Security, let's imagine. I'd much rather take that dollar and instead put it in like a 457 or put it into a Roth IRA. I would get way more value out of that, okay? There's two reasons for this. One, the Social Security benefits aren't really that good if you're good at personal finance, all right? If you're good at personal finance, you know what to do with $1. You know about all the 457s, 401s. You know about all that stuff. All right, so if you aren't able to fully take advantage of those other accounts, Social Security is not so great. It's not where you'd really want your money to go. You wouldn't choose to put your money there. So for one, if you're good at personal finance, there's probably better places to put your money than Social Security. And two, as I mentioned before, as your income goes up and the number of years you work goes up, the benefits increase at a decreasing rate. All right. So it's always beneficial to earn more money in regards to your Social Security benefits, but the gains shrink over time. All right. So for that reason, if you're somebody who earns a decent living, which you will be, and you're somebody who's good at personal finance, which I hope you will be, you still would like to pay less in Social Security taxes, okay? Flipping that around, the people who benefit the most from Social Security are those that are bad at personal finance, right? Those that wouldn't save otherwise. They need Social Security because they're not putting any money in their 401k. Those are the people that benefit, right? The people who are bad at personal finance or the people who don't earn a lot of money, right? Because the benefits are regressive. As you earn more, the benefits increase at a lesser rate. So if you're earning $100,000 a year while you work, all right, you'll earn more benefits than somebody who earns $50,000 when they work, but not twice as much in terms of the benefits, if you get my drift, okay? And we'll see the math on that here later on. So it's called a tax, but it's not really a tax because the money does come back to you, at least partially. Okay, so now let's get into more of the specific rules here. Let's talk about credits. The Social Security system is based on this idea of earning credits. A credit is just like, exactly like it sounds, it's a credit towards Social Security, okay? And in 2020, you need to earn at least $1,410 in Social Security eligible income to earn one credit. So if you are a tutor at Georgia College, you probably don't earn credits, even though you might be earning enough money, because remember, it generally isn't eligible if you're a college student getting paid by your college. So you've got to make basically you have to be paying taxes on it. So $1,410 in income counts towards one credit as long as that income is subject to Social Security taxes, okay? So you can see it's pretty easy to earn a credit, and you can only earn, here's kind of the weird thing about Social Security, you can only earn up to 4 credits a year. So what that tells you is it's pretty easy to earn the 4 credits per year, right? Basically, if you have a full-time job, you are definitely getting those 4 credits that you need, okay? So it's easy to earn credits, but what Social Security is trying to do here is not necessarily see how much you're earning. They're looking for longevity. They want to award American workers who are working for a long period of time, all right? And specifically, it's not that long. Essentially, you just need to work 10 years. You need 40 credits to be eligible at all for retirement benefits. So it's pretty easy to get these benefits. Right? Sometimes students are confused by this because they think basically if they get to 40 credits, well then they've maxed out their limits, and that's not the case. The thing is, if you earn between 0 and 39, you get nothing when you retire, all right? That doesn't mean your benefits stop growing after you hit 40, right? So 40 is the minimum threshold, but as you earn more credits, you're also earning more income, paying more Social Security taxes, so your benefits are still going to grow, okay? So you need 40 credits to be eligible for retirement benefits. These credits also determine other benefits. They also determine disability benefits and survivorship benefits. But this is much more complicated than retirement, so I'm just going to mention it now. If you care about learning about these things a little bit more, I'm not going to actually teach it in this class because it actually is really complicated. For example, the survivorship benefits is based on not just credits, but also your age and how many credits you've earned recently and how many kids or dependents you have. It's a bit of a mess, okay? The basic logic of this is, let's imagine you start working when you're 22 and you work, you work full-time until you're 26. Well, you haven't earned 40 credits, but you're clearly a consistent worker. So if you were to die at 26 at that point, you would get those survivorship benefits based on the criteria they've set up. If you take a couple years off and then die, then you're not going to get the benefits. So that stuff gets a little bit complicated. I don't really see any reason for you to memorize this, but where this would come into play is if you have kids and you're trying to decide about life insurance benefits, right? If you die and no one's earning any income to support your kids, that's a big problem. So you'd want to see what your situation is with Social Security to help decide what to do. Again, I'm not going to cover this in this class because that is actually gets quite complicated. All right, so those are the credits. So you need to earn 40 credits in order to get retirement benefits. That's definitely something you're going to want to know. It would be kind of a disaster to earn 38 credits and then stop, right? Let's say you're married and you have kids and you decide to stop working with 38 credits. Oh man, that's kind of a disaster, right? If you just work 2 more at that point, you would then be eligible for retirement benefits. So you would certainly want to think about these things if you're not working, a typical American 30, 35-year career. Okay, key point number 4 here. Let's get into some terms. AIME and PIA. These are major mathematical ideas in Social Security. We'll start with the first one here. This is your average indexed monthly earnings average. Average indexed monthly earnings. That is an extra A in here. Average indexed monthly earnings, okay? So let's break this down. Average, you know what an average is, right? We're trying to figure out how much your benefits will be, and this average just refers to like your average salary, okay? Your average salary obviously is very connected to your average Social Security taxes, so this is the average, all right? It's based on how much you're earning on average. Indexed means they're basically going to account for inflation. If you didn't index things, your first couple years when you work, it looks like your salary is lower than it actually is because it's in nominal terms, right? If everything gets more expensive over time, your salary tends to get more expensive over time. If we didn't think about inflation, everybody's last 4 or 5 years of work would look more important than it really is, okay? So they're accounting for inflation here. Monthly, we're just going to turn things into monthly averages. So, you could take yearly average, divide them by 12. That gives you monthly, no big deal. And then earnings refers to your Social Security eligible earnings, all right? Kind of sounds complicated the first time you hear it, but it's really not that complicated. Basically, we're going to average your Social Security eligible salaries, adjust for inflation, and divide by 12 if you want to think about it in terms of months, which is the way the Social Security tends to think about it. The reason Social Security thinks about it in terms of months is they provide benefits in terms of months. So after you retire, your Social Security benefits are going to come in as a paycheck every month. So they're going to think about it based on what you earned every month when you were a worker. The idea here is Social Security is going to replace some of your income. So if you're making $4,000 a month before, they use that $4,000 to base what you should earn now, all right, once you're retired. And this is based on 35 years. All right, which is kind of interesting here. It's your average over your 35 years, and it will average in your zeros. So, for example, for me, if I only work 25 years, right? If I only work 25 years, 5 years, or excuse me, 10 years will be zeros, right? It counts your top 35 years. And if you only have 25 years of earnings, that means there's going to be 10 years where you have no earnings. So it averages in those zeros, okay? So basically, if you're thinking about Social Security benefits, you get big benefits working up till 35 years. But once you start working more than 35 years, the extra benefits you get tend to get smaller and smaller, okay? Because, you know, if you can replace all those zeros, that's a big deal. But once you've replaced all the zeros in terms of income, the gains become smaller over time, right? I hope that makes sense. So, you know, you're not necessarily going to think about this amount when you're earning Social Security, but when it comes time to see what your benefits are going to be, you're going to want to refer back to these values, all right? This is your average index monthly earnings. From that, we then look at a little table that's based on PIA, which stands for your primary insurance amounts. PIA, primary insurance amounts. I don't know where they got this term from, but this is basically figuring out how much your benefits are going to be. The two key criteria for figuring out your benefits is how much you've been paying for 35 years. That's based on this AIME. And then PIA shows how much your benefits will be in percentages terms, okay, in percentage terms. So let me show you some brackets here, and then I'll show you the logic of them. This is 2020 numbers. These do change over time a bit, basically to account for inflation. In the quiz, I'll also include these figures for a couple of questions here. And hopefully the material that you're doing right now will be a little bit easier than what we've been having recently. This looks very complicated the first time you see it. Not that the numbers are complicated, but it's kind of a strange way that the system is set up, okay? These numbers here are based on your AIME, your averaged indexed monthly earnings. So for example, let's say you retire at 67 years old and your average indexed monthly earnings is $2,000, all right? What that would mean is over a 35-year period, you earned an average of $2,000 in Social Security eligible income, okay? So you put money in your HSA. Well, that didn't increase your AIME. You paid your health insurance premiums. Again, that did not affect your AIME, right? That did not count for your AIME. But once you consider what you paid in terms of Social Security taxes, it's like you were earning $2,000 a month over a 35-year period. That would be your AIME, okay? You would then use that to figure out how much your benefits would be that you're going to receive, all right? So if your AIME is $2,000, what that would mean is some of your money would fall into this bracket and you would receive a 90% benefit. 90% of your AIME would be paid out to you, all right? So let's start with an easier example here, just to make the math nice and simple. Let's imagine that your AIME is just $100, really low, right? So you only average $100 a month when you are working. Well, then all of your money would fall into this bracket and you would receive $90 a month in Social Security payments, okay? Not super complicated, but a little bit weird the way it's set up. So if you're earning $100 a month, you would earn $90 a month in Social Security payments once you reach retirement age, which is normally 67, okay? If your income is more, all right, going back to that last example, if your income is $2,000, you could see that that now pushes you into this bracket. But similarly to what we saw with marginal tax brackets, this is a marginal system. So what this means is if you earn $2,000, your first $960 would receive a 90% benefit. And the extra money that spills over into this bracket would receive a 32% benefit, okay? So kind of the way we solve for taxes, you're going to solve for benefits here. But remember, you want a high number in this case. This is not what you're paying in. This is what you're receiving at retirement, okay? So this person's monthly payment, their monthly retirement payment would be $960 times 0.9 plus 1,040 times 0.32. Okay? Where I'm getting that 1,040 is there's $1,040 that would fall into this bracket. 2,000 minus 960. Okay? So their first 960, they'd receive a 90% benefit, and then the rest of their money would receive a much smaller benefit. This is what I mean when I said that Social Security benefits are regressive. As you earn more money, the benefits you get shrink. Okay? So if somebody is earning an extreme amount of income, you'll see that their benefits, it's not that their benefits shrink, it's that their additional benefits get smaller and smaller, right? So somebody who earns twice as much money as somebody else will not receive twice as much in benefits. They might only receive 40% more in benefits, okay? So let's do the math real quick. Let me grab my calculator. And we'll see exactly what this comes out to. And if you have you can actually get a Social Security account online to track all this stuff and actually see what your benefits are once you reach that 40 credit threshold. Remember, you have to have those 40 credits. So the answer I get here, pretty easy math, right? Is $1,196.80. So this person would receive that much in monthly payments. All right? This is pretty small average index monthly earnings, right? Most people would be a lot higher than that. So you can kind of see that Social Security is a big deal. It's a really big deal in terms of your financial plan. On average, Social Security accounts for 40% of someone's pre-retirement earnings for an average person in America. So it basically replaces 40% of your earnings. But the more you earn, the less it replaces because of the way the system is set up. Okay? So we got to learn about Social Security. It is a key point. It is a key part of your financial plan, right? We know about 401ks and all that stuff that you really can control. Social Security, you don't have as much control over, but you need it in order to predict how much you're going to need. I need to have an estimate of what this value is to figure out how much money I should be putting into my 401k today. Okay? So that takes us about 2/3 of the way through Social Security material. Next, we'll be thinking about what retirement age is and some other key points with Social Security.